I enjoy the service delivery of being a freelancer. It's one of those things where it's kind of like growth isn't always a linear thing, you know.
Oh God, you sound like a Stephen Bartlett infographic.
Fuck off. I'm not even having that. That's actually upset me. We're going to talk about this later.
Hi Grace, welcome to the HoLT Survival Guide for Small Businesses. Firstly, before we get into all the nitty gritty stuff that I know we're going to enjoy covering, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I can. I'm a freelance copywriter and content writer since around late 2019, and I primarily work with business owners and sometimes agencies, but, you know.
Which do you prefer?
Mostly business owners, because they're the decision makers. I don't really often like having to have like the middle person, but, you know.
I find it harder to convince the middle person, or the middle person then has to go off and ask somebody else for permission, who usually is quite clueless as to the value that you offer, who you are. Maybe they're not familiar with you and your brand, and you end up going around in circles.
So it's like an accountability hierarchy as well, because usually the person that makes or breaks a relationship with an agency is your point of contact. So if they're not very communicative, or if they don't have good feedback with the person they're accountable to, even if the work is good, easy work, it suddenly becomes difficult. So
yeah, I've definitely found the same thing over the years. So you've been doing this for 5 years, and I know we know each other off camera as well. You came straight out of university into freelancing, which is a bold move. So you've literally never been employed in a company. What was the story as to why that came about? Why did you suddenly go straight into freelancing?
So I think it's kind of like a lot of people go to university and you kind of get in your head about what you should do as a degree, because you're aware that it's like, so when I was there, it was $9,000 a year just to study, just to get some PowerPoint presentations. Yeah.
And that's not including all the rent and the bills and everything else.
So I stayed at home, I commuted in, but it was still expensive just in terms of your student loans and all of that. But all of that aside, because we'd be here all day. I think it was that thing of, I studied psychology with counselling and psychotherapy. Always liked psychology. I did have the intention when I was younger and, you know, far more innocent to the world, that I was going to be a therapist, because, you know, you have a lot of friends that have mental health conditions, you yourself struggle with mental health, and you're like, that's my purpose in life. And then I start studying it and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'd have to do 2 years, 3 years of a master's degree, more debt.
Yeah.
And then you usually have to do placements. It's very competitive as well. Generally, you'll have to do a lot of volunteer work alongside your studies. And I just thought, this is not something you go into lightly. So what can you do now? And in typical fashion, I basically procrastinated until my third year and was like, you're going to have to get a job soon. You know, you're going to have to do something. And both of my siblings are in marketing, older siblings. So I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it, you know.
Right.
Not in a disrespectful way, but my older sister was in kind of content writing, like copywriting, and she was like, you know, you spend all your time writing essays and doing written content, why can't you apply it to that? And I was like, that's fantastic. Let me go and apply for all these roles. I cannot tell you how many I applied for.
Really?
I'd be lucky if I heard back just to get a rejection, because even though they were marketed as entry-level roles, that's what they wrote. It was like 2 years experience, 1 year experience, you have to have a degree in it, you have to have this. And I was just kind of like, what type of job is this where you can upskill on the job and use your transferable skills first, you know? But unfortunately, none of them really wanted anything to do with me, so I ended up hearing back from somebody that was running an internship, and it was unpaid. It was a dental marketing agency.
Fun.
Yeah. And I got a lot of like experience kind of trying my hand at a little bit of everything, because I didn't know definitively I wanted to do copy or content. When I started, I actually thought it might have been social media, which I think I now know would be a terrible choice for me. It's like whenever anyone's talking about trends, I'm like, how old am I again? I have no idea what you're talking about, you know.
I think knowing you definitely are secretly a 60-year-old in a 20-something's body.
Yes, told when I was 12 that I was an old soul. And it's like, you mean depressed and anxious about the state of the world?
I see it reflected because I'm like that. Like, I'm a cup of tea and slippers at home with the dog, not a out partying. Although I did do that in my 20s. So.
You know, a bit of both. But
So you had the internship and then didn't earn any money from it?
No.
Which isn't really helpful to pay off the university debts for the degree you didn't want to pursue.
I did want to pursue it, and in fairness, plenty of overlap with consumer psychology and stuff. And I did do a lot of writing for mental health related stuff as well. But it was one of those things where it was kind of like, what other option did I have? And it's a great privilege to be able to do unpaid work.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm staying at home still now.
Yeah.
Would like to add, I do pay towards bills, right? I'm not a doss about, you know, I'm working. But back then it was just like, what do I want to do? What can I get out of this? And it was in that office space, because it was for entrepreneurs, business owners, that I met someone else who then started me on the path of working in like mental health related content copy. And then Lewis, who we're all familiar with his agency Lightbulb Media, started doing some work for him. And that was when I officially set up as a freelancer, getting paid for the work. So
it was being around other people running their own businesses that really sparked that first. And that's something, I mean, it's the whole reason that we've got this podcast is that there are so many solo business owners out there, freelancers, small business owners that don't have the opportunity or don't put themselves in the position to be around business owners to realize that, because we all have this, and I know because I did it myself, I had this kind of, this must only be happening to me. This isn't happening to everybody else. And the minute I realized that my experiences weren't unique and I felt less alone, that spurred me on and gave me more confidence, because it's like, oh, it's not just me that doubts myself constantly. It's not just me that's struggling with this, that and the other. It's a very normal part of the life of a business owner, at least until you're so successful that you can sit on your yacht all day. So tell me, in this journey, so it's 5 years, I hate the word journey, I'm sorry, but it's been 5 years. What has been, would you say, a really significant, like what sticks out as a significant turning point in being this very young, because what are you now, like
26.
So you were 21 when you started out as a freelancer. You must have learned a lot about yourself over the last 5 years. But is there a point that you sort of felt, I'm actually quite good at this? Like, I'm figuring this out and it's going quite well.
I think it's probably when I started asking for testimonials, because I feel like when you start out, you're not in the habit, you just want to deliver the work and kind of piss off when it's a one-off project.
Yeah.
And then when I started asking for the feedback, I was like, oh, shit, look who's good at the job.
That's brilliantly, like, that's really interesting, because I think that's something that people really struggle to do.
Asking for feedback is intimidating, because even though it's usually obviously at the end of the project, you've been told the work's good, it's all signed off, there's still part of you that is like convinced that they're suddenly going to be like, crock of shit, do not work with this person, like would not recommend. And in reality, you know, that's people are more than happy. And also it's really good for marketing purposes, because you get a real sense of why they came to you, what problems you solve, because it's not just like the writing. You know, I get a lot of feedback on the way that I onboard clients, because I have unintentionally worked with a lot of people that have ADHD. Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting, because to me, I don't think about it. You know, if you want to send me a voice note instead of filling out a brief, just typing it all up, that's fine. If you want a video call, great. If you want to facilitate primarily over email, that's fine as well. Yeah. So I hadn't thought about that. And that was another part of testimonials that really affirmed to me, like, you're doing this part right.
That's interesting, because that's not something I've ever thought about, but I never had like a rigid system. If people, like, there was a way you could apply to work with me, but if that didn't suit you, I never had a problem with someone emailing me or sending me a voice note on LinkedIn or something. I tend not to give out my phone number, but like sending a voice note out on LinkedIn, it never bothered me, like how you would choose to engage. And
but that's the thing, you don't really think about it, but clients do, because a lot of them will say, you know, when I was looking at other people and their type of content, like what attracted me to yours was the fact that you state it's adaptable to me, you know. It doesn't bother me, it doesn't make any difference. Like a voice note, I find it very funny because it's almost always the people that are sending voice notes like on their treadmill at the desk. They're talking, they're drinking, they're walking all at the same time. And I love it because I'm like, if it's not natural for you, I'm going to struggle to get what I need out of you for the copy. So if you're forcing yourself to sit there and type at a laptop when you cannot concentrate and that's not your natural pattern of thinking, you're not really going to be writing accurately. Whereas if you're comfortable talking it through, your personality comes through as well. And that's very useful.
Yeah, you can pick up the intonation in their voice, the excitements, the things when they talk about something that it gets, you know, you hear the voice lower and them less enthusiastic about certain parts or get a bit ranty. And that's all really, especially with your background in like psychology, you're probably picking up on all of those little changes in how they speak and react to certain things, because you can then twist that into how you put their voice across in the content or the copy that you create. How did you feel when you first started asking for testimonials from people? Was that like a proper ick?
Yeah, a bit nervous. I mean, I have anxiety anyway. It's not officially diagnosed, but I've read the DSM. Whatever. Yeah. And literally, that was the realization that made me want to go into psychology in the first place. Was at college at A-level when I saw the diagnostic criteria for anxiety, and I was like, tick, 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 tick. And my friend was like, I don't think you're meant to be ticking that. You know, like I don't think it was meant to be like a checklist. And I was like, oh shit. Like, so for me, it was like that moment of, oh, I don't know. And then I thought, well, how are you going to have any social proof? Because you're there waxing lyrical online about how good website copy requires proof. You need to reaffirm and validate what you're saying. Don't just show it like...
So you're being a hypocrite.
Yeah, basically, you know, which is fine. Like, I can do what I do as I say, not as I do.
Did you realise that yourself, or did somebody else point that out to you? Because I know definitely there's been times when people said, yeah, but you don't do that. And I've gone, what do you mean? Well, no, I actually don't do that. I need to do that as well.
I think it was just one of those where I was thinking about stuff to post on LinkedIn and I was like, you've never posted any client feedback? And I was like, because you don't fucking ask for it. So, you know, like unless you're screenshotting like an email, which I love, like it doesn't have to be this massive case study. I love when it's just, you know, a message that's like, you've totally got this, nailed it. That's great. But obviously, again, when I started doing a list of questions, that was when it really got better, because it was like, why did you get in touch? What pain points were you struggling with? Which ones did I help you solve? Like, how did you feel after?
And it really helps to guide, if you are somebody who wants to niche, it does help to guide you, because you see not only these are the clients that I like to work with, but these are the clients that I get the best results from. And you see the like overlaps and patterns emerging, or certainly I've done. Yeah. Like I've seen, based on how I've experienced working with certain clients and then seeing the results, I've gone, okay, well, these are the types of people that really dedicate themselves to what they've learned and really put in the effort. So I can start narrowing down, saying, who are the people that I want to work with? So it's testimony. I wasn't expecting you to say that. And I think, and not just necessarily, because you said that was a real turning point in how you feel, not just the formal testimonials, but the good, you know, someone sends you an email back. Someone's like my newsletter writer, if someone sends me an email going, that was an amazing email, really love what you did there, I forward that to him so he can see the impact that he's had as well. Or I take a screenshot, but when I get feedback that's about something that I've done, I add it to, it's so cheesy, but I call a smile file. And I have a smile file that's literally just content, nice things people have said about me. So on the days that I feel like I'm terrible at what I do and I'm doubting everything and wanting to chuck my laptop out of the window, I go in and look at it and go,
I have that, but mine's called my Attaboy folder.
Attaboy folder.
Yeah.
I love that. Like a little pat on the head.
Yeah, yours is so wholesome and mine's like, wee.
Oh, mine's Fiona Bradley's fault. She called it a smile file. And I was like, that's amazing. That works very well.
I feel like that's too happy-go-lucky for me. It has to be. It's just
you're much more of a...
sound.
And that... your entire brand on LinkedIn, and it's predominantly where you are reluctantly, but that's where you spend your time to market. You are very sarcastic. Your sense of humor is incredibly dry, and you do embody the sort of humorous, grumpy old lady type vibe with your content.
I accept it wholeheartedly.
But it works so well for you. Even your brand name. Tell people what your brand name is.
Crying over copper. No.
That is so you. It embodies everything that I've learned about you and your brand, because you're just very, very deadpan and you pick on things in a humorous way. So it never comes across as bullying or deeply unkind. It comes from a good place. But you do have me crying over copy, but like tears of laughter. And I absolutely love it. Running your own business takes courage, dedication, and hard work. That's why over 100,000 small businesses and freelancers count on Kudos to protect what matters most. Kudos understands that your business is more than just your work. It's your passion, your livelihood, and your future. Their policies and award-winning service are designed to give you complete peace of mind so you can focus on what you do best, running your business. Head to kudoscontractor.com to learn more and use code LEA10 at checkout to get 10% off your first policy, subject to eligibility. So we've talked about the turning point where you realised you were really good at it. What has been a moment, because I don't think anyone's ever told me one of these moments that hasn't been hugely relatable. What's been a moment where you've just wanted to chuck it all in and thought, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe running my own business isn't for me. Or has there been a moment like that?
I mean, I feel like whenever you have quiet periods, you just start to think this is a fucking waste of time. Like last year in particular, I think everyone I spoke to as well that was more on the freelancing side of things was saying like, it's so competitive now just to get any type of work, and you will always have quieter months. And then when you're left to kind of think about it, in the earlier years, I used to just start getting really panicky, whereas now I'm like, focus on batching up your own content, do business type stuff. But that's when I would start just thinking, my God, is it really worth all this stress? I'm not getting paid for holidays. I'm not getting paid if I'm sick. It's stressful. And then you've got to worry about saving up for your tax bill, your pension. No one ever likes talking about that because it's fucking boring.
Yeah, but it's true. I just had to pay my tax bill yesterday, and my personal tax bill is now more than I used to earn in a year, which makes me want to cry. And it's one that, you should feel proud that you're able to pay that much tax and put back into the system in the country that you live in and blah, 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 blah. But it still hurts.
I think it's just the fact that it's like, if it was like regular employment and I never saw that money, it would be fine. But it's the fact that you see it, you get it, and then you have to wave it off. Yeah. Bye-bye.
It floats off into the taxman's pocket and you can go, oh my God, I'm going to miss you.
It's like on a deeper level, I feel like the moments where I've sat there and thought, oh my God, it's just when it's just small. I've never had any massive issues with clients. Very lucky in that regard. Yeah. Whenever it's stuff like late payments, it's usually not out of like neglect or nastiness. It's just forgetfulness.
Well, you do work with lots of ADHD people, so that's understandable. I'm like
I don't care. I will send an email and be like, knock knock, not to be the tax man, but there is this invoice if you don't mind paying it now. It's like
I either pay it immediately or I've forgotten about it, and my team will know that if I've not paid it within 24 hours, remind me, because I've definitely forgotten.
It's never malicious, but I think for me it's when it's a lack of alignment with clients. So there's been a couple where it's not that they're like an out and out bad client. It's just that their way of communicating and mine just does not mesh. And oftentimes it might be because they're from a very corporate background, very blunt and straightforward, but not in a way that really aligns with the kind of bluntness and straightforwardness I'm used to. And it's kind of like,
but
I
yours
want
comes with a
something
warmth and humour
Yeah.
underlining it, right? Whereas if they're just, it depends. It's the intention behind it, isn't it? It's get this done, minion. Intention is like, no.
Yeah, because it was one of those where I'd gotten an email from this client in particular where we'd been trying to figure out whether what I wanted to deliver would be delivered in page by page or a few pages at a time. And I think in the confusion, they'd assumed that it meant all of them delivered at once. And there was kind of this tone of like, well, where's the rest? Like, and I had to take like the email content itself, I had to get someone else to look at it and say, do you think that this is a little bit snarky, a little bit rude? Because I always have to check, because I think when you're in the moment, you can take it personally. And I'm like, yeah, it is a bit like the whole email. So it's like, okay, I'm going to take half an hour away from my laptop and not react. I'm going to respond, and then had to reply basically saying like, that's not really how we were actually going to do it. Here's what's been done so far. This will be done by this time. If you want to have a call to discuss it. But it was very micromanagery, and I don't like that, because my whole philosophy on work is you will hear from me relentlessly in the build up to it. I will tell you everything we're going to be doing step by step. And then when it actually comes to me doing the service, I will piss off. And you will not hear from me until I have a draft, unless I need to ask you something. I'll maybe drop a message or an email saying, here's where I'm at if it's a longer one.
So you'll really let them know the process. So there's no,
what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
what have I paid
why haven't
for?
I heard from her? She's disappeared.
I know for me personally, I'm not at a point where I can just like outsource just like that. You know, it's one of those things where it's a significant investment for me. If I pay for someone to do something, it's not like it's just money that I can just piss away. So when I do that, I want to know what's going on. Yeah. So when it comes to client work, I'm like, no, here's what's going on. Here's when it's going to be delivered by. But this person was just like constantly wanting calls, 50 plus comments on a Google Doc. Yeah, I opened it and I was absolutely flabbergasted. I was like, what the fuck is this? I've never ever had that, not once.
That's wild.
And I honestly, it was one of those moments where I sat there and I was like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Like, what am I doing? And then I was like, you know what, actually, I don't think I'm the problem in this situation, as bad as that sounds. So I was like, I had to sit there, and my sister, God bless her, is basically the person that like has to put up with when I go through these peaks and troughs. And I was just like, it's not me, is it? It's not me. It's just like, no, I just think that you don't gel. It's just, it's just one of those client situations where you just kind of want to sign off on the work and go your separate ways. And this client did come back at a later date, maybe like a year later. Yeah, I said no. Yeah, because at the time as well, I was thinking, it's just get the money. It should be a shot. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing it again.
Was it, how far into your freelancer business?
So I think that was about 2023. So yeah, a little while in. And I think for me, it was such a kind of significant moment, because I'd not really had that much of a significant difference of a client before in terms of communication.
So that was where you became brave enough to go, I'm not going to work. Mm-hmm. If I get that vibe, that red flag from a future, not that client's a red flag, but for you personally, they were a red flag. And so if you ever got those vibes in future, you were strong enough to go, actually, I don't want the money, because the stress isn't worth.
You pay them like a cost when you do it. So even though you're getting paid money, like the financial aspects of it doesn't really compensate for the mental toll, I feel like, And
it's also like, I notice with the freelancers that are in my membership community, when they're pricing things, sometimes they're not taking into consideration. And actually down the studio manager, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? It's when you're pricing a package for somebody, you're thinking about how long is it going to take me? How many potential revisions am I going to need? How much is the actual sort of research that you need to do? But you might just think, it's going to take me 3 hours to do the project. But you forget that you need to factor in the potential that they're going to want masses of revisions, or that they're going to be responding and having comments and constant back and forth, because you assume people are going to be kind of easier than they actually are at the beginning. I think. So how have you overcome, you just said about contracts, how have you overcome those?
So in the contract, it's basically like the exact deliverables, and it says you're allowed 2 rounds of amends. I think I've adjusted it now to like a round of edits and a round of amends, because to me, like, amends are just small little things. You know, like, oh, the wording of this, I would maybe change it, or the technical element, and amends are like the slightly bigger bits that you focus on. But you only get 2, and it specifies anything outside of that will be a separate cost that we can discuss because it's outside of the scope of work. I've never had to actually chase anyone up on that. And I mean, in fairness, I think as with a lot of freelancers, you will end up with some times where, and again, working with ADHD clients, I always say, if you want to look at the document in one go and then leave it, and then I'll take a look, that's fine. If you do bit by bit, I'm not going to class that as 3 separate amends when you've gone in and out, in and out. But another kind of fail-safe that I'm not sure there's like a nice way to word it, so I'll just say it the way that I say it. There's the twat tax, where if there's a client that's kind of like a bit of a knob, or even, I'm saying twat tax, even when it's something you don't like writing about, or something that's going to take a little longer, you just add a bit more money on what you're charging because you're accounting for the fact that it's a bit more strenuous.
I've definitely,
everyone's done the twat tax, whether you realise it or not. When someone's gotten in touch, you've been like, it's adding another 0 on this package, I think. Like,
the worst thing is though, when you, well, I say the worst thing, I've definitely added large amounts to things thinking they'll say no because they don't, like, they won't want to do it. So I'll just make it a really high number because I don't want to do it, and they're never going to pay that. So that just gets me out of it. And then they say yes, and you're like, oh.
But it's like that constant toing and froing as a freelancer, where you kind of start to get your feet with pricing when you just start going, okay, I'll just charge this amount and see how it goes. And then when they say yes too quickly, you're like, fuck, like I should have charged more. But then you have no idea whether that was just the right amount for them. You know, I feel as though you spend so much time getting in your own head about it that it's like you start to forget that it's like you can increase your prices with whichever client and just say, well, this is for this package, this is bespoke, it covers this. But I feel like the second you fall into the trap of assuming, oh my God, I didn't charge enough, oh my God, I didn't charge enough, it's never going to seem like enough because you're not comfortable enough to jump in right away, starting from a certain amount, if that makes sense.
I think that there's a real balance when it comes to pricing in terms of, like, do I feel like this is enough? Like, will I be happy earning this amount of money for this many hours work with this client on this project? And if you're happy with that, great. But then you do have to think about bringing it up gradually so that you can earn more, but not so much that you feel really under pressure to perform like better than you feel you're capable of.
Well, because I always feel like that with speaking events too far, like you start, it almost impacts your delivery of the service because you feel like you've overcharged and you're not worthy of charging that much. Whereas it's that perfect threshold where it's outside your comfort zone, but not so much so that you actually start to feel as though you're
I
going
get that
to
with speaking events. People are like, you should be charging 5 figures for speaking events. I'm like, no, I bloody won't. No, because I don't feel like, and that's not me having imposter syndrome. I am not experienced enough to be on a stage and demand 5 figures. Yes, I might bring an audience, but I know that I'm going to feel so cripplingly anxious about not being paid that amount of money.
People on LinkedIn love saying stuff like, charge your worth. What the fuck does that mean? It's kind of like that thing.
It's very vague. It's a nice soundbite, isn't it, to empower each other. But you need to actually work out, what will people pay? What do you bring to the table that's, like, for influencers, for example, it's not just what's the package you're delivering, it's how many eyeballs are coming onto the brand with that, and how much time are you spending responding to comments to boost the visibility. There's lots of other factors to think about, but people do get it wrong, and I do see people just throwing out either really, really low amounts or really high amounts, and you're like, or people who absolutely mug people off, where a course is £250 for 3 months and then they suddenly slash it to 20 quid and you're like, are you kidding me? You just
this is the thing though, it's like, when it comes to pricing just with clients, you can always start off higher and move lower if you're willing to compromise for work that appeals to you. You can't go up once you've gone down.
No.
But it's like, one of the most logical things you can do really is just think, what kind of salary do I want to be on? How much would I have to earn a month for that? And what can I deliver service-wise to account for that? Now, it's not always going to work that way because at the end of the day, the sales and all of that required But it also forces you to sit down and think, have I actually got the capacity to deliver this service twice a month or this one 4 times a month?
Yeah.
And then when you actually think about that, you get a good idea of which services you actually fucking hate and you don't know why you're doing.
But you also have to factor in the time for your brain. So especially something like content creation, copywriting. If you are tied to your desk 8 hours a day, chucking out financial copy for blogs or whatever, you are going to reach Wednesday and want to like walk off a cliff, because you need the space to touch grass, go outside, have fresh air, rest, because your brain cannot be working like that, especially if it's not your finances. You said that's not one of your favorite areas. It takes much more concentration. Trying to write an entire website in a couple of days on finances, you're probably not going to want to do much else that week, because you're going to need the rest. I don't know about you, but I'm not creative if I'm tired. I have to have some good sleep.
Sounds weird, but like the service delivery is my favourite part about it. I love having a stacked to-do list of stuff to write. Because it's like being able to switch from one thing to the other and, not get too stagnant with it when it's just one project at a time. Yeah. It kind of drags a bit. Like, if I could just get someone sales for me, I'd do it. But as you say, like, at the moment as a freelancer, I don't want to be an agency. I don't want to be a limited company. I feel as though there's so much pressure on platforms like LinkedIn that it's like you have to get bigger, you have to expand, you have to hire people to be successful. And then I'm like, right, but what kind of knob would I be if I jumped into that without thinking about it, hire someone and then have to fire them a month later? And then,
do you feel like that's something that you will do eventually? You just want to stay as a freelancer for ever?
For the foreseeable, yeah. I'm not like a thinking 10 years in advance person. No. For me, just thinking about the next couple of years, I'm happy being a freelancer. Like, I've seen people who've tried to go down the agency route and hiring people and the toll that's taken on them, because you forget that when you're a freelancer, the blessing and the curse is that it's you're accountable for everything.
Yeah.
And that's great in one sense, because it's like you have ownership over everything. You're the one deciding what you do and don't do. I feel like when you take on the responsibility of something like an employee, you might be more prone to working with clients that aren't a good fit. And you might be more prone to doing work you don't like doing because there's another financial stressing out on you.
Yeah.
And it's not referring to someone as like a burden, but the financial burden of having an employee is massive. Yeah. So I just, no, it doesn't appeal to me.
But how is it? And because this is a real character strength that you clearly have. At 26 years old, you are surrounded on LinkedIn and, you live in Manchester. It's a very entrepreneurial hub of people. We're surrounded by people that are running towards success. They want to be made. How do you sort of keep your head on that this is what I want? I'm happy running my freelancer business, making enough money to get by. I guess it sort of helps that you're still living with your family because you haven't got that kind of additional pressure of...
Oh, yeah. I mean, renting's not for people who aren't in relationships, that's for sure.
No.
Like, in Manchester, you're talking, $1,500 a month, not even including,
it's madness,
additional utilities and stuff. So,
but how have you stayed in your lane and not got swept away like the vast majority of people? Because I have this conversation all the time with people saying, but I need to do this, I'm like, why? Are you making enough money to live? Are you happy? So why do you need to go for them? And I've had to rein myself in when I find myself getting lost in this I don't know what to even call it. It's
sea of bullshit.
Yeah, it is a sea of bullshit. It's just like everybody else is racing. I'm like, what's the hurry? Why am I in such a rush? I can do this at my own pace. But at 26, I don't mean to sound patronizing. So many people are getting lost in this buzz that are in that sort of entrepreneurial world. I have to grow this. I need to reach 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures before I'm 30. You haven't got lost in that. And what do you think it is about you or how you're living your life that helps you to not get lost in that?
I mean, I think some of it's been on LinkedIn since 2019. A lot of the types of people who dive into that and don't actually do a good job and lie about how much they're earning to sell like, oh, here's how I made 6 figures. You need to pay me 10 grand to teach you. I just think you're a knob. Like, and that's just not for me. And on top of that, it's like, I enjoy, again, like the service delivery of being a freelancer. I think for me as well, it's one of those things where it's kind of like growth isn't always a linear thing, you know.
Oh God, you sound like a Stephen Bartlett infographic.
Fuck off. I'm not even having that. That's actually upset me. We're going to talk about this later. But point being, like, when I've spoken to people who are actual business owners, limited business owners, like, it's a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, because you're not going to post about when you're having a year where you're not sure whether you can pay your employees. You're not going to post about all of those times where you think I should have just stayed running it by myself for a little while longer. Yeah. And having that clarity of like a lot of what is being posted online about why it's great to grow is ignoring all of the super shit bits about it. And for me, I'm like, the shit parts of being a freelancer are still infinitely easier than the shit parts of being somebody that's running an agency with multiple employees. And to me, it's like, you can always go up that way if you want to, but it's very hard to scale back down if you go there without thinking it through first. Yeah. Because it's not just like the fact that you'd feel bad for doing that. It's the fact that publicly you would have to kind of make some comment about the fact that you've suddenly gone from an agency with multiple employees and all this to like a one-person business
I
again.
see that happening on LinkedIn as well. And you'll see someone announce something.
It's like
and then
quiet quitting for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and 6 months later you're like, well, what happened to that thing that they were doing? Like, oh, they were going to do this and they were going to do that. And I haven't heard
seen a
about
few
that.
of those. It's like they start off like, oh, LinkedIn ghostwriting, and then all of a sudden they're a TikTok agency and like, what the fuck? What's going on here?
Just throw a load of spaghetti at the wall, see which one sticks.
But that's the thing, I'm like, I think there's just nothing wrong with just saying that's not for me. Like, I don't want to be responsible for other people. Like, it's a bit of a ball ache being responsible for just me sometimes, so it's like, just me is fine, and that can change and that will be fine as well. But as for right now, just no.
I chose the same route because I tried having an employee and I was like, oh God, I've got to keep telling her what to do all the time. This is not fun.
People don't realise how much people management goes into that. Like, you can't just say, here's your role, get going. You have to onboard them. You have to make sure they have everything they need to get going. And you can't just leave them to it. It's not like outsourcing, where that's someone's bread and butter, that's their job.
Yeah.
When it's an employee, you have to update them on how the business is doing, all the new updates in terms of clients, what they need to be doing. Yeah. And you will need to hold the hand through it. And I think some people have gone into it and they're just not equipped to have that. They don't want to do that. They don't want to be somebody who's sat there doing circle time with their employees, but you're going to have to.
I'm absolutely not that kind of person. And having a team of freelancers where everybody knows what they need to do for me. And I literally just fire out WhatsApps throughout the day. Mm-hmm. And I never even say like a timescale. If it's urgent, I say, this is when I need this by, this one's an important one. But that's so rare that I have to specify a time period. It's just when you get to it, which inevitably is usually within 48 hours for all of them. Because I'm not in a situation where much is in a rush, other than, if there's member issues in the community, someone can't log in, that one gets
There's
like
a
rush
lesson about copywriters. I'm like, it's not life or death. It's words on a website.
And you probably have like quite a long lead time on most of your work anyway, right? Mm-hmm. Or they get a twat tax on it.
I think it's one of those things as well where it's like, naturally you're going to have periods where it's like 4 or 5 projects back to back, shorter and longer ones. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, this is great. And then you'll get one project that's dragging out and you're like, oh my God. But it's kind of like just part and parcel of it, really, isn't it? Like, if you don't enjoy having at least a bit of quiet time, like, financially, is it great? No. But I feel as though anyone who says that when they're freelancing, they don't have quiet periods, I don't know what you're doing to get that, unless you have like 5 retainer clients. It's going to happen.
And I noticed a lot of copywriters talking about how quiet things were last year. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. Maybe just like you said, the competition's high. There's a lot more people coming into the market, into the job market, that want these sort of freelance digital nomad type jobs. So maybe that's
AI.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. So nobody needs you anymore because they've got Chat GPT.
That'll be the fucking day.
Do you know, though, it makes me laugh because with the transcription that I used to do, I'd have been out of a job now because everybody uses Otter AI. It feels serendipitous that I left that as
exactly
things like Otter AI started coming in. I'm like, thank God I got out when I did, because my job would now just be proofreading rather than...
All I'd say to that is read a couple of things ChatGPT puts out for a website or a post to tell me you don't need a copywriter.
Oh my God, the stuff that it puts in my comment sections on social media, I'm just like, oh my God, people actually think the amount of respected CEOs who I get commenting on my content on LinkedIn.
Great post about insert topic.
You know that their little $5 an hour VA that they've hired from some sweatshop in the Philippines is running everything through ChatGPT.
So problematic that so many of them openly talk about that.
They're proud of having people they pay $5 an hour. I can't... Sorry, I'm going to probably get cancelled by people, but...
prejudice, really, to be like, I've gone out of my way to hire someone in a country where I know I can get a going rate that's cheaper for it.
I've got a community manager that lives in India and a community manager that lives in the UK. They're paid the same. They will always be. As it fucking
should be.
Yeah.
Too many posts about like, I've hired this person for this amount of money, and it's like, why are you happy to advertise this?
It just makes me very uncomfortable when I see. We've had a few people promote them within the community. I'm like, no, we don't promote essentially slave labor. There's no way they can actually be making any money from even
me
where
and
the cost
2
of living's
rounds of unpaid work. Like.
Yeah. Oh, that it does make me mad as well. So if you could give yourself, when you were, let's say, 1 year into your business, if you could now give yourself some advice back at 20 years old, or was it 22 years old, a year into the freelancing, what would you say to yourself that would make the next 4 years easier?
Probably just, you know what you're fucking doing, you know what you're talking about. Like, late last year, I started doing mentoring for girls in marketing.
Oh, I love that.
And for me, it was very validating that the first few calls, like, I was preparing for them. I was writing notes and everything. And then when I started doing more and I got into it, I was like, you don't even need to do that, because you just know, like, when they're talking about stuff, they're asking for advice, you already know. But when you're just in the business, you don't really acknowledge how much you know about it, because it's the same way when people get really angry about a client not knowing why you've made a decision. You don't know what you don't fucking know. Like, they've got no idea why you've done it that way, because that's why they've asked you to do it. So I think for me, it'd just be like, yeah, you're doing something right. You know, you're still getting clients, you're getting great feedback. Just keep doing what you're doing in terms of be assertive about the decisions you're making, the type of clients you want to work with. I mean, content on LinkedIn's fine. LinkedIn as a platform, I have no idea what's going on with it half the time, but, you know, I still get feedback occasionally from people in DMs like, just, I love your content, or I've showed this to my team because I think it reminded me how dry my content is, and I was like, that's lovely. You know, I write some stupid stuff on there, so when someone goes out of the way to message something like that, I'm like, I just want you to know my day has been made. You know, I'm sitting there like,
oh, I love that. It's funny, actually, because I posted about a similar subject as you talking about mentoring last week on LinkedIn, and I was talking about the fact that everyone says you should always be the dumbest person in the room if you're an entrepreneur. And actually, there's so much value to being one of the smarter people in the room, because you realize how much you've learned. And when you do mentoring and you have conversations with people behind you, you go, damn, look at all this stuff that I've learned. I don't even know who this person is that's falling out of my mouth right now.
So you don't have to be the dumbest person in the room, because, hey, you know, when people are dealing with imposter syndrome already, you don't need to reinforce that. It's just about having an openness to the fact that you won't know everything, but the stuff that you're familiar with, you know well, and that's fine. Yeah. Just an openness to learning from people ahead of you and to trying to help those, I don't want to say behind you, but, you know, earlier on in their journey. Yeah. So to me, that's been so valuable, because I feel as though if you lean too much in giving advice to people who are entry level, you start to think you're like the pinnacle. Yeah. If you keep an eye ahead of people that you admire and that are doing things that you just appreciate and aspire to, then you've kind of got that nice balance where it's like, I don't know everything, but I do know plenty.
You need the ones ahead to keep you hungry and the ones behind to keep you humble. Or the ones...
I'm always hungry.
Yeah, or the other way
around. If you've not heard stomach noises this entire time, I'll be so and hungry for work, obviously.
What is it? Well, tell us then, because we'll put this in. Who are your favourite people to work with?
Just whether it's a early stage or just a small business, just business owners that are just passionate about what they do. Because I've worked with everyone from people in risk management, like building, lighting, air service type stuff. I have to look up a lot about that. Traditional marketing agency owners, people who would describe themselves as solopreneurs, but the thing that they all have in common is like they know their business, they love what they do. They just don't know how to write for it.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's like, you do know your business, but it's my job to take what you know and market it, basically. Yeah. So no industry niche, but I primarily focus on website copy, tone of voice guides, copy audits, and blog posts and strategy.
Passionate about what they're doing.
Yes. You've got to fucking love it.
That's a soundbite if ever I heard one. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Grace. It's been really great to chat with you. And once again, this one, Bronson, has been good as gold.
You're so cute.
Supporting small business owners is my biggest passion. And that's what my membership community, the HoLT, is all about. Inside the HoLT are more than 150 masterclasses from experts in every business skill you could ever want. And we add more every single month. There are also sales clinics, tech clinics, wellbeing support and advice, and discounts on a huge range of software and services. But it's so much more than just trainings and resources. Everyone inside the HoLT shares their years of knowledge and experience generously, with kindness and without judgment. They're super active. The chat channels are buzzing, and it's like having 600 business cheerleaders in your pocket, willing you to succeed and helping you wherever they can. And we offer all of this and much more at an extremely low price, because we know that budgets are tight when you're bootstrapping a business. The HoLT is a kind, inclusive and non-judgmental place where everyone knows that working together is the fastest way to succeed. And it makes it a whole lot more fun. We would love for you to join us. You can check out the full details on the-holt.com. Or if communities aren't really your vibe and you just want access to the hundreds of expert masterclass recordings with a combined value of more than £10,000, you can access the Vault right now for just £20 per month. The Vault is all the masterclasses with none of the chat or distractions, just pure value. Visit the-holt.com/vault to sign up and start binging your way through brilliant trainings from leading experts.